So today we're going to talk about calculating slope and learning that the slope is a measure of steepness, and it has no units at the end. It just compares how far it runs up versus how far does it run horizontally. We're going to take a look at using this formula, and we're going to adapt it to different situations, but that's kind of the main formula. The M stands for slope. All right, that's kind of the big idea. And I'm learning the difference between positive slope and negative slope. So a lot of these examples you're going to see a lot of similarities, but we'll give this a go. So determine the slope of the roof. All right, so if I'm looking at this, slope is a measure of steepness of a line. Slope is also referred to as the rate of change, and we're going to apply that to different scenarios moving forward. And it's the ratio of the rise to the run. So the vertical change to the horizontal change. And we're going to use this formula again, m equals rise over run, where m is the slope. So we're going to determine this. So starting off pretty quick here, if I'm looking at this roof, the idea here is I have to find my rise and my run. Well, my run is my horizontal distance. So there's my run, and the 3 meters is my rise. All right, and I can put that in there, 3 over 5. And one of the things we're going to try to do is leave that as a fraction. There are some times where this makes sense to make it a decimal. If we're talking about money, it makes sense. But if I divided that out, that would be 0.6. But the idea here, this is more of the important part. All right, and one of the things that we're going to check is this in lowest terms. All right, in this case, yes, it is, but we're going to check that moving forward. Okay. So determine the slope of each ski hill, and we're going to say which one's the most gentlest slope to the steepest slope. Well, let's look at this. All right, and then at any time you want to hit pause and try this, that's a great idea. All right, so if I look at this, this is my run to my rise. All right, so this is 60 over 70. And if I put that into lowest terms, that's 6 over 7. And actually, you know what? I am going to hit pause here because I'm going to have you try B and C on your own and see if you can get the lowest terms, and then we're going to compare. So let's hit pause and give it a go. So hopefully when you push pause there, you can see kind of my thinking that I've done there. So I found the rise and run, got it as a fraction. I even reduced it to lowest terms, and I didn't reduce this one to lowest terms. I could have said this is 4 over 5. But if we were trying to rank them from least steep to most steep, how would you know? All right. Well, if I was looking at this, the higher the rise to run, the more steep it is. So I would say this would be the most steep. And I would say that this is the least steep, because the ratio, this one smaller to this one is larger. All right. As we move forward here, we're going to talk about different calculations and identifying certain things. The idea here is understanding when I have an uphill or downhill, horizontal or vertical. And one of the things that we want to be very careful about is understanding positive and negative slope. So this idea here is, as I'm increasing this distance from left to right, as I'm going this distance here, I'm increasing. that swings uphill, that has to be a positive slope. But if I'm going downhill, as I'm going from left to right, I'm going downhill. That makes that a negative slope. Okay. Another two things that are very important, horizontal. So if I was skiing on a horizontal slope, am I going to be going, am I catching any speed? No, I'm just stationary. All right. Here's the other thing. If I was on going down a ski hill, all right, and I'm doing a vertical slope, my skis aren't hitting the slope, all right, and that's why it's undefined. The idea there is here, there is no run here. Here, for this one, there's no rise. All right, so this is kind of important to identify some big ideas moving forward. All right. So, determine the slope. So I'm going to do a kind of couple of these. They become harder. All right. So if I'm looking at this first one, that one's pretty easy because I can look at the units on this graph and say, hey, those units I can see. All right. So if I was looking at my run here, I ran from 1 to 3. So I went 2 units to the right, and here I went up 3 units. So my slope here is rise over run equals positive 3 over positive 2, or 3 over 2. That's pretty easy. You have to be careful when working on these is what's the scale of the graph? How much is it increasing? And for some people, it may be important to actually label in the numbers in between that will help us to gauge on these numbers. So if I went from 0 to 8 in 2 jumps, each jump has to be 4 in this case. And some people may not have to do this, but some people may need to do this to see that. So fill in these numbers to help us with that. Here, from 0 to 4 is 2 jumps, so every jump has to be 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. All right, fill in the gaps. Now, if you don't need to, that's fine. I get that. But that's going to help us to determine where I start and where I go. So, if I'm still looking at this, I want to ask myself, okay, how far did I run? How far did I rise? Well, here I went from 4 to 32. Well, that way I went actually 28 units. And another way of showing that, and I'm going to show that to you in a second, another way of looking at it. Here I ran from 4 up to 16. So that I increased by 12. So that's my rise, and that's my run. All right, so my slope, rise over run. My rise is 12 over 28. You might want to try to reduce fraction. Try to leave it as fractions best you can. If I'm looking at that, I can probably divide each of these by 4. So that would be 3 over 7. Some other ways of looking at doing that is making a table. And if I look at a table here, I can say my first point is 4, 4, right? X value is 4, Y value is 4. My second point is 32 and 16. So this is another way of helping us do this, and you'll see that at the bottom of the page. Well, our y values talks about our rise. Our x values talks about our runs. Well, what do I have to do to get from 4 to 16? Well, I have to add 12. Interesting. Same number. Hopefully we did this right. Our rise better be 28. Well, what do I have to do to get from 4 to 28? I add 28. So the same way of doing it. All right. And I can reduce the fraction to that. So a big or. Some people will struggle with figuring out what you have to do on the graph. Some people may feel that putting these points on the table helps us to visualize it easier. Your choice. Your choice. All right. So what I want you to do, let's help ourselves here with this a little bit, is let's identify the points we have here. Well, for part C here, that point's really easy. That is 0 and 20. And this second point, there's the numbers down there. So that's 2, 4, 6, and 8. So this point here is 8, -10. So two ways of doing it. You can figure out from the graph, or you can figure it out from the table. In the end, it doesn't matter because you should get the same answer. And for some people, doing it both ways might guarantee them to get the answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit pause, and you can check your answers. All right, so there's kind of my thinking. I started off with the table. All right, here I went down 30, so it's a negative. All right, so we're always going to run to the right. So I went down 30 and I run 8. Here, all right, what do I have to do to get from 20 to -10? I had to subtract 30, which is the same answer, and here I had to run 8. And then I ended up putting that same information into there. So hopefully that's kind of helped. All right. Sometimes we have to be able to plot points when given a table. So these numbers are nice for the x-axis. So we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Well, these numbers aren't nice. But you know what? Maybe I do, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. As long as the scale stays the same, you can use it. Same here. Scale has to stay the same. If the scale is not the same, can't do it. So we can plot our points now. 1, 10, 2, 20, 3, 30, 4, 40, and I can draw my line. All right, there's my line. Then it says find my slope. So my rise. Well, when you find your slope from a line, you have to pick 2 points. Whatever 2 points you pick is great. You just have to pick 2 points. You could have picked this one and this one or this one, these two. Heck, you could have extended the table. It doesn't matter because it takes the proportion of it, and you would end up reducing the fraction no matter what. All right, same thing with the table here. I can pick, you know what, for my rise and my run here, I can pick 2 points. All right, if you're a person that wants to just choose here, hey, there's 10, there's 1, my rise is 10 over 1, which is 10. Awesome. But you know what? Maybe you have people that are like, hey, I want to be different. So what? Well, maybe if I look at that, all right, I can go plus 40 plus 4. All right. Rise over run. 40 over 4. Well, and I end up reducing it to 10, right? They're the same answers. So it doesn't matter. Okay? Same thing here. I can do 1 to 4, right? No, I did that wrong. That should have been 30 over 3. My fault. But I could do the same thing here. Here's my rise, here's my run, plus 3, 1 to 4. Here I went from 10 to 40, plus 30. All right. All the same answer. So it's not a big deal. The big thing is pick 2 points. You need 2 points to draw a line. You need 2 points to find the slope. You pick a line. Pick one works. It could be points in between. It could be points that are extraneous. Okay, it doesn't matter. All right. All right, on to the next page. So just like we did before, we can find the slope from tables. All right, and it's as simple as doing rise and run, all right, for each of these. And it doesn't matter which point you choose. I could make it simple to myself. All right, here I added 4 to 1. That's easy. And kind of works the same thing here. Well, if I'm looking at some of these points, hopefully you notice when looking at these points is that these points are decreasing. So this slope better be negative. All right. Here I ran 2. All right, I went down 12. All right, and negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6. All right, so for every 6, these goes down, this goes down by 1. So keep that in mind. Okay. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Different ways of looking at it, still get the same answer. All right. Sometimes the points are not nice. All right. It says use the slope formula. Well, the slope formula says rise over run. And there's another formula that I'm going to introduce to you because you may see it in grade 10 or grade 11 or grade 12. And what it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And basically what it means is if I was looking at the coordinates for x and y, that's where they would go. And arbitrarily, we're going to say that my first point is 1, negative 3, and my second point is going to be 4, 1. And there's many ways of looking at it, of why it works. And I'm going to do it in terms of a table first, and then I'll use a graph as a second. All right, but in the end, we will understand what it means. Well, our rise is these components. All right, and what we do is we want to figure out what do we have to get from -3 to 1. Most people will say I have to add 4. Hopefully that's the case. Well, another way of looking at that is saying 1 minus -3. Well, that gets me 4. Ooh, ah. I can hear people going ooh, ah on the other end of this. Same thing here. All right, that's +3. Well, another way of getting 3 is 4 minus 1. So this being the second point, this being the first point. So there's my slope. So different ways of doing it. Some people will like the idea of the formula. Some people will like to take these points into a table and do the same thing. You choose. Or is the big word here. Okay? I could do the same thing with the graph. We know the slope has to be 4 over 3. So we're going to plot this point 1, -3. There's my point 1, -3. My second point is going to be 4, 1. I messed that up. There we go. 1, -3. It's right there. All right. Then I can draw a line. Get out. Get my pencil here. All right. And then I can just say, hey, find my rise and run. There's my run. Well, my run went 3 units. My rise went 4 units. So we're not asking you to pick. You have to learn all 3. What I'm saying to you is all 3 do get you the same answer. It doesn't matter. All right. Last one, and then I'll let you guys practice. So here I've got a point. All right, so we're going to say this is point 1 and point 2. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the table first. So I'm going to do 417 and 947. And then I'm going to ask myself that. All right. So I'm going to hit pause here, and you're going to do the slope. All right, and when you come back, it'll be done. All right, so I looked at that. 47 minus 17 got me 30. 9 minus 4 got me 5. I got my slope as 6. All right, or I can find the slope like that. And then I'm going to take 47 minus 17 over 9 minus 4. That's going to give me the same answer. 30 over 5, which is 6. All right. So both ways work. You choose which method works for you. All right. If you're going to choose this method, Watch for your double negatives. All right. Watch for your notation moving forward.